else to say hi, and then we're going to jump in.
All right, so we have got, everybody's saying hi now. Dominique, good morning. Don, good morning. John, good morning. Carrie, good morning. Rocio, good morning. Kiefer, hi. Good to have you online with us.
Cool. So today we are talking about
home sale contingencies.
We're getting a lot of these now.
Yes, a lot. I would say 25-30% of calls coming in on the hotline have to do with home sale contingency questions. So we figured we'll
talk about it, which is interesting. I mean, I'd say 6 months ago, everybody knew you couldn't
buy a house
with a contingency. But right now, people are
accepting them.
Accepting that.
And I think there's just a lot of buyers that are moving up in the marketplace, so getting out of a smaller home, maybe those first-time home buyers upgrading to their next home. And in order to move up, you have to sell what you're currently in. And I think everybody's kind of in that same boat. So the sellers are doing the same thing. Well, I got to sell to buy, so I'm going to be a lot more open-minded to a buyer coming in that has a contingency as well. So that's my 2 cents on why we're seeing more of them now than we were before. Because the market is crazier busy than it was 6 months ago. So there's really no other reason for sellers to be looking at home sale contingencies, because you're still getting 10 offers on a property.
Yeah. So let's break it down. We've got several different scenarios and sides, depending on who you're representing, whether it's a listing, whether it's a listing that's going under contract, whether it's a buyer who's buying. Mm-hmm. So let's kind of break it down, and we'll start with probably the most common person is a buyer.
Yep.
You're representing the buyer, so we got to know who we're looking out for.
Yep.
So you're representing the buyer.
Got it.
And they have to sell their home, and they haven't even put it on the market yet because they know it's a crazy market.
And it's going to sell fast.
It's going to sell fast, and they're scared to
move forward on putting it on the market without finding something first.
Right.
Raise your hand in the comment section if you have a buyer scenario just like this in the last few months. It's the most common right now.
Yeah. So representing the buyer, person has a home, they must sell it, but they're nervous to sell it before they buy.
Exactly.
But of course, what happens? They go out looking at houses.
Yep.
You tell them, we got to get your house sold first, and then we can go look at homes.
Because otherwise our negotiating power and our leverage isn't so great.
And that still stands true. That always stands true. The best scenario is to get their home on the market, get it under contract, then go looking at homes.
Yes. That's
the best thing to do. But if they don't want to do that,
because they're fearful, completely get it.
And they go see that house that they love, their home isn't sold, not even on the market, they want to write an offer, you're going to write it contingent. And what's that look like?
So we're going to hop over to CTM just to actually walk you through a demo of what this is going to look like.
Where should I go? Where would you like me to go?
Let's go to Sample John.
Sample John. There we go.
All right, so let's just go to create a new contract at the top, because we're going to pretend that we're going into the system and we're writing an offer for this client. So we're going to select the contract to buy residential, which is the top contract under the sales contract section. And so you're going to go in and you're going to draft your offer just like normal, only you're probably going to push out your closing date a little bit, because there's a high probability you won't be able to do a 30-day close, because you need the funds from the sale of their home first in order to close this transaction. So there's a high likelihood that you're going to do a 45-day or a 60-day close. So you're going to do all of your dates and deadlines like you normally would, but you're probably going to push that closing date out just a little bit. There's also a section called Conditional Sale Deadline. It's line 33 in your dates and deadline chart. It ties to paragraph 10.7. So if you want to know what the definition of conditional sale is, look at the little paragraph and it will tell you. You're going to put a date in that box. My recommendation, if you don't already have their home on the market and under contract, is match that date with the closing date. So let's just say you write the offer today, you want to do a September 30th closing. I don't even know if that falls on a weekday, but we're going to say that it does. You want to do a September 30th closing. Your conditional sale deadline is also going to be September 30th. That's the last day they can terminate the contract if their home sale should fall through. So in section 10.7, you're going to write in their property address that they have to sell. Not the address of the home they're writing the offer on, but the address of the property that they need to sell in order to buy this one. And that makes it contingent. Those are the only two things you have to do differently in your offer. Now we will have some recommendations.
So that's the basic.
That's the basic.
Your buyer has to sell a home, you write it up contingent.
And then I recommend you call that listing agent and you really hit it hard with their home's gonna sell fast. Here's the comps, here's the stats. The reason we didn't put it on the market is because it will go quickly. And you really reinforce that you are confident that there's not going to be any issues with this home sale. Because if there's multiple offers, the likelihood that the listing agent and the seller are going to say, yeah, let's go out on a limb on these people that haven't even put their home on the market, and that can affect us and our next steps, they're probably going to say, no.
Exactly.
So if you really sell it hard,
they may. So let's go to the other side. The offer's been presented to the listing agent.
Yep.
You're the seller.
Yep.
Let's say you don't have multiple offers. The house has been on the market for 2 weeks and you're panicking that, oh my gosh, 2 weeks, that's a long time.
Maybe we overpriced it. And an offer comes in with a home sale contingency, the way we just told you about. And you're
just like that.
Oh, yeah. We got an offer.
They're excited, but they don't want to take the home off the market 100%. So what do? We'll go back to the contract.
So there is an addendum that the law firm Frascona, Joyner, Goodman, and Greenstein, which we talk about all of the time, has drafted. And it is not a clause that you put into the contract, but an actual addendum that supplements the contract. And so it is called, let me look on here, Removal of Conditions Addendum, a little more than halfway down. What this allows the seller to do is to continue marketing the property in the MLS. Oh, it's not going to let us. Go into, give me just a second, guys. Go into miscellaneous docs management. I've already got one of these loaded in because we don't have a parent contract drafted. So scroll down and we're going to find the removal of conditions addendum. Click on the green globe. There we go. Okay. So what this does is it allows the seller to continue marketing the property for sale. And in the event that they get another offer that comes in that they like, they have the opportunity to tell you, would you guys like to move forward or would you like to terminate? We've got another buyer in hand. The caveat to being a seller accepting an offer with a buyer home sale contingency is you have to change the status in the MLS to pending. So you can still market the property as having a 48-hour first right of refusal, or they call it a kick-out clause, but you do have to change it to pending in the MLS. You can still advertise it on the internet. You could still, once we're out of COVID, do open houses. You can still market it on Facebook, but it is going to change the visibility of the property because it isn't going to come up in the active search category. Does that make sense?
Perfectly.
Awesome. So do you want to dive into this addendum?
Let's just actually read this. And I like that they have this in quotes now, because we used to just call it removal of conditions addendum. Everyone uses right of first refusal. It's not a true right of first refusal. Maybe someday we'll talk about what a real right of first refusal, but that's what we're commonly known.
That's the common terminology that we use.
So please write this down right now. You guys are going to run into this, and then you're going to call us and go, what's the name of the contract? So it's removal of conditions, right of first refusal addendum. So if you read removal of conditions, it says seller may continue to market the property for sale. Upon a seller providing to buyer the written notice below, this notice, indicating either seller's intent to accept an alternative offer on the property or seller's conditional acceptance of an alternative offer on the property, buyer will have So this is where we say it's a 24-hour first right of refusal. You can put in the hours you want. You can say 24, 72. And that allows your buyer to look at their position, where they're at, and in the event they remove their condition, they move forward with their contract as normal. Their dates and deadlines are still there as far as when they're going to close. They don't have to move up the closing, but they have to remove all their conditions and move forward with that. And so they got to really look and make sure, is this something I'm going to do? Am I going to move forward or not? So 24 hours from receipt of the notice, decision period, to execute and deliver the notice and removal conditions agreement indicated below, and deposit with the brokerage firm of the broker working with the seller additional earnest money in the amount of, there doesn't have to be additional.
You can put zero in
You can
there.
put zero.
Yeah.
But if you're working for the seller and maybe you had a small earnest money amount and these people are removing their condition, you get nervous when someone had to sell their house and you can see that the house didn't sell. I mean, you can go on MLS and see it didn't sell and they're going to remove their condition. You don't want them to back out for some other reason. So you might have, in the beginning, the agent might have said, we only took a $5,000 up front. We really want to make sure that these people are in it for the long haul. We want additional earnest money. Or it can be zero. That's up to you. The expiration of the decision period will not be extended by 18.2 or any other provision of the contract in failure of the buyer either to deliver executed notice to remove conditions or deposit any required earnest money before the expiration of the decision period will cause this contract to terminate upon such expiration. If buyer delivers the executed notice and removal of conditions agreement, waiving the conditions and deposits any required additional earnest money before expiration of the decision period, then except as provided in paragraph 2 of the notice and removal of the conditions agreement, buyer will be in default, buyer does not close.
So yeah, the home doesn't actually have to be sold for the buyer to remove their conditional sale contingencies and all their other contract contingencies. If they've at least got their home under contract through inspection, maybe even through appraisal, and they feel confident that the buyer they have is going to make it to the closing table, they can say, yep, I'm moving forward. So when the seller approaches them and says, hey, we've been marketing the property, we found another buyer, they're offering us over asking price, 3-week close, we want to move forward. Are you in or are you out?
Yep.
This is when the buyer decides, yes, we're in, or no, we're out. And they fill out this page 2. And basically what this states is they're not only removing their conditional sale contingency, but they're waiving their appraisal, the owner's association, financing conditions, title insurance. So any other deadlines they had in that contract are now gone, and they will close on that property no matter what, or rest their earnest money.
Exactly. So who's this really, really, really looking out for?
The seller.
The seller.
Yes.
And
which makes sense.
I like it. Stacy and I were talking about this morning. She's like, for representing a buyer, she does not
I don't like
it.
this because now if you haven't done your inspection and the seller comes to you and says you got 48 hours to decide, you can't make a determination. Nope, I'm waiving inspection, I'm waiving appraisal, I'm waiving loan. You're not far enough into the transaction to make that decision. But if you're going to require someone take their home off the market, I see your
See, I like it. You guys all know that the contract is in such favor of the buyer. There are so many ways for the buyer to get out. The seller can't terminate. The seller can't do anything. They're selling their house and they really have
no rights at all.
No rights at all. This says, hey, I've taken my house off the market. It's a hot market. I've got multiple offers. You had to sell your house. Are you in it? If you're in it, then you better start your due diligence, and I don't care what your dates and deadlines were. Maybe your dates and deadlines, you still had a week or two for appraisal or inspection. Before you remove that condition, get in there, get your inspection done. Call your lender, make sure that this is a done deal, and you are a 100% qualified set. I am risking all my marbles. I'm going in, I'm buying this house. And that's what that form says, and I like it because it really protects the seller. And you know that the buyer's in it.
Mm-hmm.
So
if a seller is going to go out on a limb and take their home off the market in a hot market like we have, Last thing you want is the buyer pulling the plug the day before closing. It's not fair to the seller.
No.
So this does make sure that your buyer is willing to move forward and that the seller feels comfortable. And there was a question in here, when do you sign this form? You actually submit this form with the offer.
Yes.
So you send the contract to buy and sell. You also send this right of first refusal form, and it's just page 1 that gets signed, indicating here's the time period. Yes, there's more earnest money, or no, there's not. And so that goes in with the offer.
So back to our beginning scenario. Buyer.
That's a long scenario, huh?
Buyer makes an offer, only contingent. Look, if you can get away with representing your buyer and just saying this is contingent, and the other agent, and we see these. I just had an agent here recently who wrote an offer, contingent, and the seller accepted it. And I said, you guys didn't do
an addendum?
An addendum first, right? She said,
No.
No, that other agent and the seller, they felt good. Their timeline, I worked with them. They weren't in a rush. I was like, wow, that's amazing. You just don't see that.
Yeah.
But
so you don't propose the addendum up front.
If you're representing the buyer.
If you're representing the buyer. But if the seller gives pushback and says, I'm a little leery about this, and your buyers really want that house, that's when you slide in the addendum and say, how about this?
Yeah. Or if you're representing the seller, you're the listing agent.
Yeah.
You like that offer, you counter the offer and include that.
The addendum. Exactly.
So write up a counter offer, include the addendum. That's how you represent your seller.
Yes. That's a long scenario and the one that we get the most questions on.
Yeah.
So
the name of the form again.
Yes.
Notice removal of conditions, right of first refusal addendum.
Yep.
And then when the buyer or the seller presents to the buyer, I've accepted another offer, this page 2 is when...
And they don't accept another offer, they've received another offer.
I've received another offer, yes. I've got another offer that I'd like to accept. Do you want to move forward or not move forward? Page 2 is where the buyer would say, I'm moving forward, I'm not moving forward.
Exactly. So, and know that when you present this addendum, sometimes it never even comes into effect.
Yeah.
So the seller can continue marketing the property in pending status on the MLS with the condition, first right of refusal, kick out clause marked. And if nobody else ever writes an offer, the addendum just rides itself out all the way to the closing table. So it may not even get utilized.
Any other questions on this part?
So yeah, when do you sign the addendum? When you accept the offer or after you receive the offer? And then Paul says, awesome explanation, makes great sense. I don't think we had any other questions on that typed in so far.
Okay.
So we'll give you guys a couple seconds. There's a little bit of a delay from when we present and when it shows up on your end. So if you do have questions about that addendum, how to use it, whether it's buyer side, seller side, go ahead and type those in, or just general home sale contingency questions, period. Go ahead.
Our next scenario.
Yes.
Sellers
Yes.
who don't want to sell because they haven't found something to buy.
Yes. So do you have a seller that says, I don't want to sell my home because there's nothing out there on the market that I like, or everything that I liked has already gone under contract?
So you're trying to get a listing. They haven't even listed it yet.
They haven't even listed.
They're nervous to put their home on the market. It's a hot market. It's going to sell so fast. I haven't found anything out there. Best scenario is to use your experience, or our experience if you're newer, and let them know, you know what, it's amazing how life works out. Have we ever had somebody not find a home? We've sold their home.
I think we've told this before on a Tuesday talk.
I know we have.
It's like magic, and you can't explain it. And yes, your clients have to put a lot of trust in you, but I literally say it just all comes together. But sometimes they want a little additional.
Yeah, I think one time, and this is like 25 years ago, I had someone who did not find a home, and we sold their house first, and they had to live in temporary housing for a couple months. One in 30 some years. So amazingly, we can always end up finding people a home before their home is closed and moved on. And when you're a seller, you are in the driver's seat right now. So try and get that listing. Let them know they're going to have a lot more leverage when they do find that perfect home, that their home is on the market, that their home is under contract. It's okay. And when they're accepting that offer, take a longer closing. do a post-occupancy agreement. We can stay up to 60 days now.
Yep.
So now we've got 90 some days, maybe 120 days to find a second home by the time they've accepted an offer and all that. But
that's my favorite scenario.
That's the best.
Post-closing occupancy agreement. Use that as much as you can. And yes, it comes with its risk factors as well, which we'll do on a separate Tuesday talk. But if you get that house on the market and tell them, we're going to do a 60-day post-closing occupancy, which is going to give you plenty of time to go shopping. That's my favorite scenario.
Yeah.
Works every time.
That's the best.
Yeah.
But I'd say 1 out of 50, maybe 1 out of 50. You get a seller says,
Not doing it.
I got to go find a house first. I'm not putting my house on the market. And you know that they're not going to be able to buy anything. I mean, taking in a contingent offer right now when someone hasn't even listed their house,
It's tough.
it's so tough.
So let's play out the scenario and say they've written 4, 5, 6, 7 offers and every single one gets rejected and they are just frustrated beyond means.
Yeah.
What's your suggestion?
Well, let's list your house and we'll make you selling the home contingent upon you finding a replacement home. Now, I really don't like this scenario.
But it makes our clients feel really good. So we're going to tell you how to use it.
Exactly. So you're going to let them know, we're going to list your house, we're going to market your house, we're going to accept offers, and in that offer we're going to say, but this offer is subject to me finding a home suitable to my desires. And we actually have a clause for that.
We have a clause. So you will, or can, when you list the property, go ahead and hop over and find that clause. When you list the property, you can put in the MLS private remarks for real estate agents to see. Click on e-contracts over here. We're going to hop back into Sample John. And then we're going to go to create a new contract, select contract to buy and sell. So yeah, you can put in the private remarks, subject to seller finding a replacement home, call listing agent for more details. And so when they call and say, hey, I've got a buyer that's really interested, and you go through all the different scenarios of post-closing occupancy agreements, and they say, you know, we're game for whatever, my buyer's in a 6-month lease, they just found this house and thought it was great, so we have a lot of flexibility. Go down to additional provisions, we'll pop in a clause. And you guys work out everything. They're going to send over an offer, and in the additional provisions, it's going to have the seller replacement property language, and that's what we're going to auto-populate in for you to see. It's a long contract.
It is a long contract.
All right, so when you click on clauses, we are going to, it's close to the top, there's 3 different seller replacement property contingency clauses. I recommend you play with all of these and read all of them because they're all a little bit different. We're just going to select the top one. It's the most comprehensive. And basically what this language states is that the seller has put a contingency in this contract that allows them to terminate in the event that they can't find a replacement home. And you actually put a date in there, so the seller can't ride this out all the way to closing. They'll have a week or 2 weeks or whatever all parties agree upon in order to exercise that contingency. So when you go all the way down to section 30, additional provisions, it's going to show you what that contingency language looks like. And it's pretty cumbersome. It's really, really long. In a nutshell, it just states that the seller has until X date to find a replacement property, and they have to give the buyer notification that they found something or haven't found something, and that they then have to keep the buyer apprised of the status of the contract, and that if they don't find anything by that replacement property deadline that you write in, the buyer has the right to terminate this contract within 3 business days of the date that's listed. So it's a lot of language, but it protects both buyer and seller and kind of spells out all the different scenarios that could come up. So I think that's a good alternative if you've got that seller that's just digging their heels in and nervous. You can use that clause.
And I think the best part about the clause is that we have it.
Yeah.
So back to, you're going to get the listing. And you're going to let them know, you can put that in additional provisions in the listing agreement, that this is subject to them finding a property. You know,
Yep.
Make them feel good that they aren't going to have their home sold out from underneath them. Now, reality. An offer from a buyer comes in, cash in hand, and the buyer says, I don't want that wording. I mean, you wrote it in, you did a counter offer, you put all that language in, and the buyer's agent and the buyer go, no, we are not letting you hang us out to dry. We're going to go get our appraisal and inspection. We're going to tell our family that we're all excited, we're moving, and then all of a sudden you can't find something and you decide to stay where you're at. No. But, Mr. Seller, how about if we do an extended closing? How about if we give you a post? It at least allows that house to get onto the market and let your seller have that conversation with a real buyer in real time, in the real world, and not just thinking of things. I'd like to sell my house if I could find a home,
Yeah.
It helps someone make that first step, which is you got to put your house on the market because we can't go find a home until you do. And gives them the peace of mind that we won't sell from out from under you, but when all reality comes in and a real offer comes in,
Oftentimes sellers feel confident in moving forward. And
because you've had time to take them out. And you've shown them some things, and maybe they haven't found the perfect home yet.
But they feel good about it.
But they start feeling confident and they start feeling better about it. So I would say, of the few times that you make it that far with someone who needs to sell their house, who says they have to sell their home before they buy a home, and you get to that whole conversation with this whole protection that we aren't, by the time you actually get the offer, I've rarely seen a buyer accept a seller saying, I got to find a replacement. They usually come together in some other alternative fashion. So,
but it's there for you to
utilize. It's a tool. It's a tool.
Yep, and that has worked well.
Yeah.
So,
I think we've covered all the scenarios.
Those are our 3 scenarios.
Yes.
Drinking from a fire hose. I know it's a lot of information, but again, we just want to point you to tools that are going to help you and your clients move forward in the marketplace that we have right now, whether it's building your confidence, building their confidence, getting them to put one foot in front of the other. They're all things that you have at your fingertips that you may not have known that you have.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at questions. We've got all kinds of questions.
Oh, good.
So does the seller have to show the other offer? So when you're doing the conditional sale deadline, the right of first refusal, and the seller says another offer has come in, they don't have to show that offer to you. So.
And that offer can be better than, less than, it doesn't matter what that other offer is.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be better than your buyer's offer.
Yeah.
It could be anything. So just non-contingent.
Non-contingent though, yeah. They can't accept another person who has to sell a house. Yeah.
Yeah. But you can write in your counteroffer or in the contract to buy that seller agrees to provide buyer with a copy of competing contract. You can ask, but they don't have to provide it, and most don't.
Most won't.
So, good question, Tanya. Karen says, I think sometimes when sellers' houses go under contract, it makes them more motivated to find another home.
Always.
That is acceptable. Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. Amir says, just a note on the loan side of things, conforming loans, seller can rent back home for up to 120 days post-closing with a rent back listed on the purchase agreement. Otherwise, 60 days is the default. FHA and VA and USDA, 60-day post-close. Above timelines are for primary residence.
Awesome. And remember that the post-closing occupancy agreement approved by DORA is 60 days.
Yep.
Anything past 60 days is a rental agreement, which we do not prepare. Buyer and seller must prepare on their own. They can download something from the internet, but that's between the two of them.
But yeah, they could do much more extended according to this, up to 120 days. So that's good peace of mind too.
Little shout out to Amir. That was a great video yesterday. If you guys didn't watch it.
Mortgage Minutes, watch those.
Yeah, very good. We watched it last night. Geez, what was it again? I just forgot what it was about.
It was so good. You guys are going to have to watch it.
Oh, it's about, costs and how they've increased 50 basis points, which is 0.5%, and why, and how that, refi, but how that's going to affect purchase. It was great.
Yeah.
But not too long. So, well done, Amir.
Yeah, and that's what I said. I was like, I'm really not good at mortgage numbers, and it's just, one of those things that I don't excel at. And the way he broke it down and explained, hey, on a $400,000 refi, it's going to be an extra $2,000. I was like, I really understand the terminology, and the way he articulated it was spot on.
Yeah.
So that could affect some of your purchase loans and getting your final clear of closes. So even if you don't have a client that's refining, watch that video, because if there's delays in underwriting, it might give you some insight as to why you're not getting these clear to closes quite as quickly, because they're pushing the refi business through to meet that September deadline.
Yeah.
So anyways, watch that. Real good. Thanks,
Yeah.
Amir. Let's see. So Beth Goddard. So if you come upon this for your buyer, can your buyer still look at other properties, knowing maybe this contract will not close?
Well, I mean, your buyer can always look at other things, but that's not what we want to be doing.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't encourage them
Yeah.
to look at other things. Once they found a house that they like, stick with that house and
Yeah.
focus on getting their current home sold. They don't need to be wasting energy going in a bunch of different directions, because moving forward in good faith doesn't mean I'm going to go look at other houses, string you out, make you put your home in pending
No.
status, and then I'm going to terminate because I find something else I like, and now you've lost momentum, Mr. Seller. So that
No.
doesn't seem like you're moving forward in good faith. So I'm wanting to say no. Technically, yes, they can
I
always
mean,
look at other houses,
legally, people can look at stuff,
but that's not a good business.
yeah, you want to keep people focused. I mean,
Yeah.
we are salespeople. We're salespeople. We're helping people make decisions and move forward with their decisions,
Yeah.
and not start drifting and going other places, especially when you're under contract.
Yeah, it's different if you're in a backup position. Absolutely.
Yes.
Go look at other houses, because there's a good chance you're not going to get this one. But when you've actually tied up a home and all the seller's waiting on is you to sell your current home, there's no reason you'd be looking at other houses. Good question, Beth. Let's see. On removal of conditions, how many hours do you recommend? 48, 72, more just curious. I wouldn't think anyone wants a long time. I would say 48 hours is the customary
Yeah.
length of time. You may want to pad in 72 for your buyer if you're on the buyer side. I'd say 48 hours if you're on the seller side, because in 72 hours, a buyer has an opportunity to conduct an inspection, try and get their lender to say everything looks A-okay with their financing so they can make the best decision possible. Anything shorter than 72 hours might be a little bit tricky if you're in the beginning stages of the contract.
Right.
So,
But if you're representing the seller,
Seller,
you don't
you
want
want
anything
tight.
I mean, you've got another buyer that's all excited, and
you don't want to lose that.
you want to keep them excited. So that means you want to accept their offer and get rid of the other guy.
So 48 hours if you represent the seller, 72 hours if you represent the buyer.
Negotiate.
We're going to have to take notes. It's a lot. Paul says, a quick shout out to our how to make your buyer offer stand out in a competitive market document. And then sends the link. There are many strategies that will help you sweeten your contingent offers.
Very
Yeah,
good.
and good thinking, Paul. Yeah, when you're writing a contingent offer, you need to write it as strong as possible. So go through our competitive offer tips. I think we have 11 on that PDF in Elevate. Yeah, all kinds of good stuff on there. I think that's it, you guys.
Awesome. I think that was good.
Yeah,
Good stuff. Keep
use
selling.
it. Let
Yeah.
us know how it works out. If you have any questions along the way, we're just a phone call away.
Give us a shout. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you guys next Tuesday. See ya. Bye.
Bye, guys.